if you study Chinese doctrine has 6 phases. The first 5 phases all have to do with information. The last part of it would be if those failed, or if you needed an additional, oomph, so to speak, you go to the gates, I say. That's when you may see something kinetic. But we're in this sort of period of information warfare it's unprecedented. I mean, again, I'm gonna stand in my box here and say the president of the United States of America is being censored by U.S. companies. I mean, think about that. I believe we're going to see some momentum changing here. There already is an undercurrent of momentum shifting for the president, and I believe that at the end of the day, we're going to find out that he won by a massive landslide, and he'll be inaugurated come this January.
Thanks to WVW-TV, we've gotten an incredible interview from Flynn, and he is talking about what's going on. His gloves are off. He talks about how he sees this coup happening, and his word choice, not mine. But he talks about how this plays out, how it has been playing out since the 2016 election. Let's hear his first talk about how he really speaks about, I think, the phase 1 of this after Trump won the election and what everybody really kind of went into phase 1 of the coup.
Use the word uprooted, undercut, usurped, or held hostage by a coup against our nation. Would you care to expand upon the word coup? Because I know General McInerney has used the word over and over, coup d'etat. I know you're not a man given to hyperbole, so I know that word did not make that into your statement you released for no reason. Would you care to expand upon the use of that word?
Sure. I mean, I think what we experienced over the last 4 years, and certainly in the late 2016, very late 2016 and early 2017 period, was a very strong effort to unseat a duly elected president and really try to remove Donald Trump by just political pressure, by technology pressure, by financial pressure early on in his tenure. Maybe to get him to just say, you know what, I'm not gonna, I don't need this. I'm not gonna put up with it, and walk away. I think that there was some sentiment. In fact, I know there was some sentiment to maybe he'll just, he's the guy from New York. He's not a politician. He'll just say, you know what, I don't need this stuff. I got better things to do, and leave. And thank God that he didn't. And that then lasted. When he didn't, that then continued. That effort continued to go after him in any way possible to remove him through some means, whether it was the fake Russiagate, Spygate, or whether it was the fake impeachment, or some of the other the kind of stuff that we're seeing with this COVID situation that we're having to deal with now. So that's the first phase.
So the first phase is the key part, really, where they went into full force. They continued down this path. And again, as they saw things play out, they weren't able to impeach. They weren't able to and push him out with the Russia thing. They weren't able to get him to quit. So they had to kick it up a notch. And that's where Flynn starts to talk about what he calls phase 2, which really I think is what leads up to the election and what their real intentions were going into that part of this. So here's phase 2 from General Flynn's mouth.
But now it's a little bit different, and it's actually sort of they upped their game. When they lost in 2016, I think that there was a decision, and I believe this, and that there was some type of decision to say we're not going to allow this to happen again. I mean, all you got to do is go back and listen to some of the comments this past summer from some of the senior people that were that are part of this Democratic Party, right? I mean, Hillary Clinton won, being, I think it was back in July or certainly mid-summer time frame, where she said, no matter what, Joe Biden should not concede. What are we talking about there? I mean, why would she say that in the middle of the summer, 3, maybe 4 months before an election? So one of the things that I do know from my experience, in the military and in different places around the world, is when your enemy tells you that they're going to do something, you better pay attention to what they said, and you better you better have some plans and you better have some ideas about how to deal with that if, in fact, that does come to fruition. Well, in this case, we have opposing camps in our opposing camps of our political parties, and we know that the political party on the left is really way over on the left. Now, I have a hard time calling someone a Democrat or the Democratic Party. That's a name only, folks, because it's really the Democratic Socialist Party of America that has, usurped and taken over that element, and they are a very loud voice. And so they're Katie bar the door assault on us, on our country and our way of life, and they're doing anything they can right now to try to pretend like, okay, nothing to see here, and Joe's going to be our next president here. And I'm just telling you, it's the level of fraudulent activity, definitely what I would describe as what we have seen and what has been reported to us as certainly criminal behavior. But that remains to be seen because that's something that would have to be further investigated. But from the civil side of what I know people are involved in, there's definitely thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of ballots.
There's a lot of people that have come out. There's a lot of information that's coming forward. And this is just from the ballot side of things. Now, again, we knew this was coming. We'd heard about this coming for a couple of years now with the intelligence drops. And so there were things put in place. We know about the patents with the blockchain. We know about all that. So QRC codes were put on a lot of these ballots. Now, he's going to talk about that a little bit later, but that's not a done deal. Just because there's not a large amount of noise being made about some of the trump cards, if you will, that they have, doesn't mean those cards don't exist. And in fact, it's kind of funny in a metaphoric kind of ha-ha sort of way that when you play games like Hearts and stuff like that, and you lay down a trump card, that always is more powerful than anything else on the table. The trump card supersedes or is more powerful than the other cards, whoever played the suits. So it's funny that in our history, we're at this place where we've now got the Trump guy. Now, one of the things that's interesting about the Trump guy, and this kind of leads into the next piece of the Flynn interview, is how the day of the election, they thought they had the algorithm in place, right? The 23% were supposed to go to Biden of all of Trump's votes. So Trump would get 77% of his own vote, and Biden would get 123% of the vote, basically. So anything that Biden got, he got 100% of those. And then 23% of everything Trump got, Biden got. That's allegedly what they're saying. Now, what's interesting about that is that didn't seem to be even enough to give Biden the guaranteed win. And they talk about how the oops moment happened, and in 5 states, they had to shut down what they were doing because they had to figure out a way to fix the votes. Because their algorithm was not working appropriately. Let's see what Flynn has to say about this.
So what happened in a very strategic way is that the electronic vote did not achieve the result that they needed on the 3rd of November, on Tuesday, the 3rd of November. The electronic vote did not achieve the result that they needed to be able to get them over the top and get the votes that they needed, because essentially the system was not the systems were not set up in a way to get the vote count to where it needed to be, and at the same time kind of hiding how they were doing it, mixing numbers and such, and doing it in different ways in different states. So when that happened, they realized, okay, we have to stop. We have to shut down. Unheard of, unprecedented. And then Vice President Biden goes to bed. And they shut down, 5 states that night. Shut down, stopped. How do we ever allow that to happen?
How do we allow that to happen? And first off, did Biden really just go to bed, or do you think they called counting those 5 states because Biden was sleepy and said, I can't stay awake any longer. I'm exhausted. This is like well past where my lid would have been. Hard to say. But the way it played out, they literally shut everything down, sent people home. Nothing to see here. Go home. We'll call you in the morning. Maybe pick up some coffee. Maybe stop by the Dunkies or the Krispy Kremes or whatever's good for you, right? And bring some coffee and donuts. We'll get going. Oh, 700. Get on down here. But conveniently, we're counting madly through the evening. At least that's what we've been told. And so again, phase 3, how they started to put into place the oops control factor. And a lot of people suspect this is why they're definitely going to be bummed. It's not the crime typically, it's the cover-up that gets you in trouble. And there were so many votes for Trump, unprecedented number of votes that went to the incumbent president. It's never been seen before. And they weren't prepared for it. And that's where we are at this particular moment. Now, what's interesting is Flynn really does seem to have his finger on the pulse of society right now and what people really want. And also what's important about what people really want is they're literally coming forward and sharing with us what's actually happened, what they've witnessed. Their actual eyewitness testimony is proving to be invaluable. Let's hear him talk about kind of how phase 4 is going to really start to play out now that the hen's out of the bag, if you will. The hen's loose. I don't know. The fox is in the chicken coop. I don't know what the right analogy is, but the fact of the matter is people are starting to get wise that there's some shenanigans seem to have played out and that the media is doing everything in its power to cover the information so we don't actually know. And they're even going so far as to censor certain senators, certain people of any prestige, anybody that has significant audiences. They're censoring these people so they can't even talk about it. A lot of people are starting to see what's going on, and frankly, they're not happy about it.
And people around the country, I know they're fed up with it, and they're not going to put up with it. And what they're waiting to see is they're waiting to see the outcome of their own elected officials in the states do their job. And just because CNN or Fox News or a governor or a secretary of state certify an election, if the state legislature has not certified the election, then it's not certified in a particular state. And if there's a challenge and there's a legitimate legal challenge, then they can't sit there and certify it while there's a legal challenge ongoing. It's just not the way it works. So the media is not going to cover any of that for you. The big media, they're just not going to cover it. And it's sad because they're trying to shove it down our throat. And the American public, they see right through it.
So again, the media is not covering it, obviously. But the other side of this is the fact that the truth is playing out before our eyes. And the media keeps saying, nah, you didn't provide proof. You didn't actually try to sue in time. You didn't sue before you knew the crime happened. You didn't do this, that, or the other thing. And so they're running around with all these counter stories to what's really happening. Now, what's funny is what's really happening is really happening. It actually is. Even though they say it's not, even though they think they've got this guaranteed, there seems to be so much evidence. There seems to be so many witnesses coming forward, eyewitnesses, firsthand witnesses that are putting their names on the line and even their pictures, for crying out loud. They don't care if there's threats coming their way, which is rather dangerous, but still. So they're coming forward. Now, again, I've talked about how the post office had a patent for the blockchain, how we're pretty sure there was this neat little watermark thing that existed on a lot of these absentee ballots, a lot of the legal ballots. And what they've found is some of these ballots are missing this information. And they're like, oh, well, that's just because we got them printed somewhere else. Well, that's kind of the point. Certain places were allowed to print the legitimate legal ballots. People that went to other places like Kinko's or whatever, Office Depot, Office Supply, this store, that store, your friend's house that's got a copy machine. That created a bit of a problem for them. Two, when you look at the codes that existed on these things, they were unique numbers. These QRC codes you have barcode built in them. There's extra information hidden within that barcode. And it's got a unique number. And if you copy that unique one over and over and over, and then they got scanned, well, now we've got data in the database with that QRC number that matches a whole bunch of other records? And if they're supposed to be unique, how did you end up with 1,000 of them, or however many? Now that people have had a chance to dig through data, anomalies like mad are popping up. Are they coming forward with all the anomalies for the news? No. Why? Because the news keeps trying to counter every single thing that the public hears about. Anything that's a legitimate threat, CNN's immediately doing, the communist news networks immediately doing a story to try to counter that. So let's listen to Flynn talk about the absentee ballot and what's really happening right now.
And then, of course, over the next couple of days, really from the 4th of November through the 7th of November, we start to see the mail-in ballot, the whole instance of mail-in ballot fraud. And I mean, there's a whole bunch of evidence and a whole bunch of people that have come forward. I mean, there's probably a couple of hundred, and I'm lowballing it, affidavits, people who have stood up and said, I'm sick of it. And these are Democrats and Republicans. We just got another piece tonight in another part of the country from a Democrat, a woman who's just absolutely sick and tired of what she saw, and she just wasn't sure what to do. And she finally said, I got to go forward and I got to report this. I can't live with myself. That is what's happening with people who are feeling in their heart that sense of patriotism to still say, look, I don't want my country to turn into something else, because that's what these people want. They do not want our country to be the republic that it is. They want it to be something else and change it, as we heard one president say, we want to fundamentally change America. And that's not what people want. People want to live the life that they have with the liberties and freedoms that we have under this great constitutional republic that we have. So,
look, people are paying attention to what's going on out there. People are paying attention to what their elected officials are doing. People are paying attention to what's happening right now. And what's interesting is, again, the media is portraying things very differently than what's actually happening. And let's just hypothetically say what's actually happening is a legal process, which Flynn is going to suggest here in just this last little clip. So if things are heading in a legal, likely direction that they're supposed to go, and if I'm the media and I've been saying all along, this can't happen, la, 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 and then it happens, who do you think's going to have credibility after everything's said and done? Who do you think is going to support the nonsense that starts to come out of the media's mouth once the courts get a hold of this and it somehow ends up being Trump is the victor and Trump ends up being our president for the next 4 years? What's the media going to do then? Because now you've already got Fox Media that's paid the heavy toll of losing a huge amount of people that used to watch them. Laura Ingalls come out and said silly stuff. She's probably not going to survive this. Tucker, who was the number one guy, he's getting hammered. He's likely not going to survive this. Hannity, I haven't heard as much negative stuff from. He generally is pretty tight with Rush, so he might weather this just because he's going to be a little smarter, maybe. I haven't heard him called out like I have the others. Things are happening. Things are playing out. The information's coming forth. People are not just settling for this. And the fact that Flynn is now out of prison or jail or whatever and can now talk freely, or sort of freely, right? Most of his stuff's intelligence. You can't really talk about what's happening, but he's giving us a very strong indication as to what's to come, what to expect, what he believes in his heart, what he's putting on the line, and what I think a lot of us are doing as well. Let's hear how Flynn kind of sums up his whole experience.
I'm really not frustrated. I'm determined, and I am going to remain resilient to this assault that we have ongoing by elements in our country that are trying to tell us, don't look here, everything will be just fine. It won't be. We cannot have this. We cannot allow this. We are going to get this straight. We're going to straighten it out. It's going to be done properly. It's going to be done legally. It's going to be done correctly, and it's going to be done with American patriots who love this country and who are fighting like warriors on a legal battleground for sure. with people like Cindy Pals, like Rudy Giuliani and his team, like people like Lynn Wood, who's fighting tooth and nail. And most people don't even know his case that he's got going on in Georgia just got picked up by the 11th Circuit down in Georgia, and that's a good sign, because that means that the one judge down there that thought he was going to dismiss his case, the 11th Circuit pulled it out of him and brought it up to their level, to an appeals level, because they saw that there was enough evidence. So I believe we're going to see some momentum changing here. There already is an undercurrent of momentum shifting for the president, and I believe that at the end of the day, we're going to find out that he won by a massive landslide, and he'll be inaugurated come this January.
And without a doubt, I think that's going to be the case. Now, it's important, again, that the ultimate outcome is what I think a lot of us feel in our hearts, and I think that will be vindicated. I think we will get our comeuppance, if you will. But what's almost more important is that all of us see what our current elected leaders are choosing to do. Whether they're currently Republicans or Democrats, it doesn't much matter. What is your elected official choosing right now? Are they choosing you, we the people, as the best interest? Or are they choosing themselves, this Chinese policy that we think might be kind of happening? Are they choosing that worldview? And I think really the big question is, you choosing us or are you choosing them? And I think it's important that all of us understand what's really at stake and what's really happening. There's a lot of wonderful patriots that are stepping forward. Patriots on the Democrat side, and patriots on the Republican side, and patriots that are independent. There's a lot of people stepping forward for what's right, not necessarily what's partisan. Because that's ridiculous, first off. And as we're seeing, can't necessarily fully trust some of these people right now. We want the truth. We want to see what really happened, and we want to be able to believe in this process. We don't want last-minute changes happening and then people saying, oh, no, trust me. No, not gonna. Used up all your trusts a long time ago with your Russia, and everything else. Don't trust you at all. Not listening to you, la, every time you talk. It's time for us to see what we can bring to the table and what differences we can make, because frankly, we stand strong when we stand united. Where we go one, we go all. It's On the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle.